Welcome to the Western Ohio PBIS Network podcast. My name is Brandy Stiegel. You are watching video 2 of the 7-part video series that will focus on helping school teams build their Tier 2 PBIS framework. This video will focus on forming the leadership team for your Tier 2 systems. After this video, you will understand the database decision-making process. You will understand the role of the administrator on the Tier 2 team. You will understand the composition, roles, and responsibilities of the Tier 2 team members, and you will understand how to facilitate effective team meetings. The ongoing database decision-making process for school-wide PBIS is similar to most school improvement problem-solving or decision-making models. It includes collecting data to identify current status, analyzing data, and identifying desired outcomes, developing an implementation plan, which includes selecting strategies, determining indicators of results, and establishing an evaluation plan. The first step in the database decision-making process is collecting data. At this phase, school teams are going to want to focus on a specific question and work to answer questions such as what are our needs in the school building or the organization? What are our problems? The team will then begin gathering data that is pertinent to answering those questions. In the case of PBIS and school-wide discipline or your Tier 2 team, you're going to collect staff surveys such as school climate surveys. You're going to collect records of disciplinary actions such as office referrals, detentions, out of school suspensions, in school suspension, classroom records of discipline, as well as observations to help identify what the needs are or what the problems that exist currently. After the data has been collected, the next step is to analyze and prioritize those needs. The team is going to look at that data and decide where are the gaps in our current status compared to where we want to be as an organization. The team is also going to decide what data can help them drill down deeper to help further define the organization's needs and tell the story and capture the needs of the organization. After the team has analyzed and prioritized the needs, the next step is setting SMART goals based on those needs. The SMART goals are going to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. After teams have selected those, after the team has created those SMART goals, the next step will be to select strategies that will help them meet those goals. The strategy should be evidence based and effective and efficient in helping the team to meet those desired goals. Those strategies should then be written into an action plan that contains aligned goals, steps towards reaching those goals, the resources that are going to be needed to reach those goals, the timeline that the team anticipates it will take to meet those goals, and plans for communicating those goals with various stakeholders. After they have selected the strategies, the next step will be for the team to determine results indicators or how they will measure their progress towards those goals. In this case, you want to create strategies and measurement strategies or find tools that are going to help you understand if you are implementing the plan that you created with fidelity. You want tools that are going to help to understand if the implementation is having the desired impact on student outcomes. The last step in the database decision making process is to evaluate your plan. The team is now at the point where they're analyzing all of the data collected that they are collecting throughout the process to determine if they are meeting those goals that they set. They are looking to see if they are implementing the plan with fidelity, or in other words, are they implementing the plan the way they said they would? And they are looking to see if they have reached the goals or are they making adequate progress towards achieving those goals. Successful school improvement efforts require strong leadership. The administrator plays a very important role in any initiative that is being implemented within the school. One role of the administrator is to maintain standards for best practices. The principals are the clearinghouse for practice selection and the final determiner of how the school will address school improvement needs. Therefore, principals must lead their staff towards research-based practices and remove any practices and programs that may not be efficient or effective toward meeting school improvement goals that they've established. By acting as the gatekeeper, the principal can maintain high standards for quality services. Another role that the administrator plays is publicly providing support. The words and actions of the principal are very powerful. Once a commitment has been made to embark on school-wide discipline efforts, it is very important that the principal inform the staff that whatever is possible and reasonable will be done to work with them to accomplish the goals of that school-wide discipline initiative. This provides credibility and makes it easier to tackle related activities. The public support that the principal provides may also mean that the school's efforts are made visible not only to the faculty and staff, but to other district personnel, students, families, and the community. Another role of the administrator is to establish a school-wide PBIS leadership team. The principal gives the staff a leadership role by establishing a building level PBIS team. Any successful school improvement must have the support of the staff. This is more likely to occur if they play an active role in the process from the beginning and throughout the process. The team should be representative of those who will be directly impacted by the changes. Therefore, members should include teachers, paraprofessionals, supervisors, and perhaps parents and students. Using the leadership team allows for the vital staff perspective while still operating efficiently. It is essential that principals be a member of the PBIS team to provide the time and financial resources as well. It is important that the principals share leadership with the entire team. Another role of the principal or the administrator is supporting the school-wide PBIS team members. Team members assume a big responsibility and time commitment to provide leadership for the school-wide PBIS initiatives. The administrator can show appreciation for their commitment by personally thanking them. In addition, the principal needs to be sensitive to members' workloads and limit their participation in other committees that may be going on in the school and other activities. And they also need to consider ways to compensate them for their time, their commitment. Time for meetings should be protected and planning activities facilitated through the provision of time and resource should be available. Support for the team in the project translates as a clear commitment and validates the work of the PBIS team. Another role for the administrator is to guide the decision making process. Since discipline policies have to be embraced and upheld by all, a process for gaining staff consensus is essential. An important leadership role the principal can provide is to teach and guide the team and entire staff through a process for making decisions. Another role that the administrator has is to take a leadership role in problem resolution. Even when teams have a clear decision making process, there are going to be times when disagreements are going to be bound to occur. The administrator has a clear role in assisting with problem resolution and stepping in and leading the group to discover a workable solution. Another role for the administrator will be to support the team meetings. One of the most important things administrators can do to support the team is to consistently attend the school-wide PBIS leadership team meetings. As a member of the team, the a principal's full participation should be a priority. If an assistant principal needs to serve on the team and regularly attends the leadership meetings, the principal should also attend the meetings when possible to show support. The principal's role is also to provide recognition for faculty and for the faculty team and their work. The principal can support the school-wide PBIS team by recognizing privately and publicly the support and the effort of each team member. Showing appreciation through notes or personal comments of gratitude can be greatly appreciated to show that you recognize their hard work. The principal or the administrator is going to also serve as the point person for school related groups. This is another important role of the principal, as they are going to communicate the importance of and the progress of the goals of the school wide PBIS initiatives to other groups and other stakeholders. Another important responsibility or role of the administrator is to help monitor implementation activities and provide feedback. The principals have a vital supervisory role in observing and monitoring implementation of those agreed upon practices and procedures that were established in the initial PBIS plan. Staff need feedback on those new strategies in order to refine and sustain their use. As well, the staff need that feedback to use that as tangible evidence of the principal's interest and expectations regarding the implementation. Another role the principal is going to play, or the administrator is going to play, is to review and provide feedback regularly. The principal is going to help with the data collection, the synthesis, and the review of the data that is collected by the school-wide PBIS team. Another role is to ensure that the innovation is sustained, whatever that innovation may be. The principal is going to play a crucial role in sustaining the school-wide PBIS initiative over time. Staff interest and attention to school-wide PBIS may wane if other initiatives are introduced or if staff feel that progress on addressing problem behavior is moving too slowly or not being addressed at all. The principal must be diligent in keeping all staff focused on the school-wide PBIS initiatives, the purpose and goals, and to guide deep work at an appropriate pace. A plan must be created to keep new staff, students, and families knowledgeable of the school's efforts. Lastly, the administrator's role is to make a time commitment. Changing a culture requires that educators, one, take their time, two, do things well the first time, and three, make decisions based on the process of change in the stages of implementation. The principal must understand that it takes time to fully implement the school-wide PBIS framework. Developing and implementing a school-wide PBIS program or framework is not a sprint. It is a long distance marathon. The principal must be patient and persistent to continue the school-wide PBIS initiative by continuing to provide support, participation, and leadership. The process recommended for effective school improvement is based on strong leadership, shared decision making, and consensus building among all school staff. This process begins with the formation of the school-wide PBIS leadership team. As the work of developing Tier 2 begins, the Tier 1 team will continue to assist staff in the ongoing process of maintaining a positive school environment that is going to meet the needs of all of the students. Asking all members of the existing Tier 1 PBIS team to maintain Tier 1 efforts and simultaneously develop expertise for more specialized behavior support is not the most effective or efficient use of the team members' talent or time. Instead, at this point, or at the point where the team is ready to move forward with building the Tier 2 program, schools can choose to divide the Tier 1 PBIS leadership team into smaller groups or committees that will focus on a particular tier on the continuum. For example, some members of the Tier 1 PBIS team will continue to maintain Tier 1 efforts, while others may be selected or recruited to work within the Tier 2 team. Staff members who serve on the Tier 2 team will work to establish systems and practices for students requiring more intensive social, emotional, and/or behavioral supports. The responsibility of the members of this group is to ensure timely access to interventions, oversee implementations or practices, and regularly use data to monitor student progress during intervention and evaluate the overall success of the program. Some examples of the Tier 2 team members are to develop procedures and data based on rules for referring students to intervention, to provide Tier 2 strategies, interventions, and support, to provide training and support to school personnel, students, and family members regarding Tier 2 interventions, to meet regularly to review Tier 2 interventions, monitor individual student progress, and review new referrals, to summarize and review data, as well as to develop data-based decision rules, including timeframe for placing students, monitoring progress, and fading the Tier 2 interventions. While the Tier 2 team is in the initial preparation and implementation phases, the membership will remain constant and consistent. The same people will participate in each meeting and work together to accomplish items from the action plan. Once the team has established Tier 2 systems and interventions and have put those things in place, members who attend team meetings may begin to vary depending on which students are participating in the Tier 2 program. Intervention coordinators and classroom teachers will regularly participate, but may not be required for the entirety of all Tier 2 meetings. For example, classroom teachers may choose to attend only during portions when a student from their class list is discussed. Therefore, their Tier 2 team should be composed of an intervention coordinator who is going to coordinate those Tier 2 interventions, a school administrator, someone with behavior expertise, such as a behavior specialist, a school counselor, a school psychologist, a social worker, or a special educator, as well as those particular classroom teachers that will be providing those Tier 2 interventions. There are various ways to select Tier 2 team members. As we said before, initially these Tier 2 team members will be will be comprised of some of those people who are serving on the Tier 1 team. Now, as within the Tier 1 team, you can select team members in a variety of ways. These team members can be appointed by administrators. They can serve via volunteering to serve on the team. They can be selected via an election process, or as we just stated, they can be a carryover from an existing committee team or group, such as your Tier 1 team. Now, let's take a moment to compare the roles of the Tier 1 team and the Tier 2 team. The Tier 1 team, their roles are to address and prevent problems behaviors for 80 to 90% of the students. The Tier 1 team determines areas of needs within the school. They're going to use school-wide data to set priorities within the school. They're going to identify the needed strategies, current and ongoing staff training and resources. They're going to design positive behavioral interventions and supports for the classroom and the entire school. They're going to provide ongoing support for staff members implementing the PBIS programs. They're going to share school-wide outcomes and make program modifications as necessary. And they're going to coordinate school and community school-wide services. The Tier 2 team's responsibility is going to look slightly different. The Tier 2 team is going to design early intervention programs for the remaining 10 to 15% of students who are at risk for academic or behavioral problems. The Tier 2 team conducts proactive regular student screening and coordinates and shares information with the Tier 1 team. They're going to use data to proactively determine which students need additional academic or social behavioral support. The Tier 2 team is going to identify staff skill in conducting, they're going to identify those staff that are skilled in conducting brief functional assessments. They are going to design positive behavioral interventions and supports for small groups of students and or specific classroom settings that need that additional support or assistance. The Tier 2 team is going to consult with and provide ongoing support for school staff who have a student with a academic and or a behavior problem. The Tier 2 team is going to share intervention outcomes and provide ongoing support for students, teachers, and families. And lastly, they're going to coordinate school and community service for groups of at-risk students. As with any team, we want to be sure that we develop processes that honor and respect the expertise and time of all of those members. Therefore, teams want to establish effective team processes. Some processes include work smarter, not harder, create a meeting schedule, create a working agreement, create agendas for meeting, decide how to decide, Establish team roles, establish a plan for communicating with staff, and establish a plan to work to buy and establish staff buy in. Whenever you are beginning something new, implementing something new, or even thinking about something new, it is a good time to step back and reflect on what work is currently on your plate, what the intent and outcomes are, who is this work expected to impact, what staff are involved, and how the staff efforts relate to our school improvement goals. Reviewing this information across all initiatives or efforts may help teams to make decisions to consolidate committees or staff, eliminate initiatives that overlap, or wisely add to the school's improvement efforts and therefore work smarter, not harder. Several questions that the teams are going to want to ask themselves is what work is currently on our plate? How does this align to other school initiatives? What is our intent and what are our expected outcomes from this new initiative? Who do we expect to impact with this initiative? What staff will we need to involve in order to implement this initiative effectively and with fidelity? And how do these efforts relate to our school improvement goals? One thing to realize as you're developing these teams, you want to iron out a meeting schedule. During that initial development or preparation phase, it is important for the two team to meet frequently. The meeting dates and times should be entered on the school master calendar early in the school year to avoid any scheduling conflicts. We also want to ensure that the length of meetings allows ample time and uninterrupted time for that team to plan effectively. As with any initiative, establishing working agreements or ground rules is important for assisting staff to achieve their meeting goals and to increase the productivity and effectiveness of their teams. Some examples of working agreements could be developed by the members of the work group. They should be posted visibly during meetings. They should be reviewed as each meeting is initiated. The working agreements should occasionally be reviewed by the team to discuss the team's performance at the close of each meeting. And the working agreement should be revised as new issues surface. Some examples that should be included in working agreements should be to start on time, end on time, stay on topic, avoid unnecessary repetition, give your full attention, always keep your cell phone silent during meetings, clarify the agenda and meeting outcomes and time allotments before beginning the meetings. If presenting, make sure that you're prepared, watch and be considerate of time, attend to the speaker, wait to speak, use active listening, indicate support for ideas you like or agree with. Always ask for clarification if you don't understand. Make sure you share concerns thoughtfully, pair criticism with a way to improve. Keep focus on the group goal and what is best for students, and be willing to doubt your own infallibility and compromise when necessary. Establishing a decision making framework is very important. As the Tier 2's team work progresses, they will eventually encounter decisions that need to be made by the team, as well as larger decisions made by the entire staff regarding the development and implementation of new approaches. Without effective tools to make these decisions, teams may get bogged down in indecision or prolonged discussions and even division amongst the team. There are some decisions where it just doesn't make sense to involve everyone in that decision. Identifying an individual point person is appropriate when that person has the relevant knowledge or authority. In this case, decision making by the administrator or a selected team member may be very appropriate. In other cases, team decisions may also be appropriate when representation of the school is needed, but involving the entire staff is not practical, is not necessary, or may be too time consuming. PBIS teams should take time to involve the entire staff when the issue is one that everyone needs familiarity with or that requires the support of each person to carry out. This is especially important when decisions are being made about new procedures or approaches that must be implemented by all. PBIS must also take time to decide how to decide. There are a variety of approaches to decision making rules and how to decide. One way to decide is through consensus. This means that every view or position is heard, all members are willing to support the decision. The advantages of consensus decision making is generally this ensures that there is a greater buy in and therefore increases the likelihood of successful implementation. Another benefit is that the input is given from all perspectives. Once a decision has been reached, it can often be acted on more quickly than if the decision was a unilateral decision that was handed down. The disadvantages of consensus decision making is that it can be very time consuming and difficult to do. It can be contentious if individuals or small minorities are allowed to block agreements. This blocking can result in dissatisfaction with the inflexible minority or individuals. Another decision making method is to use the majority rules. In this scenario, decisions are determined by a majority vote. One advantage is that it is familiar. It's a familiar way of deciding. It's time efficient. It's also considered fair by some. Now, the disadvantage is that it can be regarded as competitive rather than cooperative. It can ignore the possibility of compromise, and it can reduce the commitment of each individual to the decision and create less willingness to act upon the decision, especially if they feel their voices are not being heard. Another decision making method is participative or representative. In this case, those making the decision seek and take into account input from the entire staff or team. Now, the advantages of this is that it's efficient in that it does not tie up the entire team or staff, but still provides the advantage of their input. When staff feel that they are heard, generally they're willing to accept those decisions. So, another disadvantage of this is that sometimes it takes time to gather the input, and there is a potential of missing someone's input. Another disadvantage is that this is going to require good communication as this representative person has to go out and seek the input of all staff. Another way is the unilateral decision making process. In this case, decisions are made by one person or a group is empowered to make a decision without consulting others. One advantage of this is this is the most efficient way. It's good for quick decisions that need to be made immediately. One disadvantage is that it is open to the abuse of authority. It may overlook some perspectives, and if overused, it can be demoralizing to the team. As you're building your tier two framework and systems, it is very important to communicate with stakeholders. Those stakeholders include staff, students, and family, as well as the community. Teams should create plans that include how they're going to share ongoing information with stakeholders, how they're going to present data, as well as how they're going to obtain feedback from stakeholders. As with any initiative, you are going to deal with resistance to that change. Tier 2 teams and Tier 1 teams, school-wide PBIS teams, must be prepared on how to deal with and address resistance to the change. One way to do that is ensure that they are continuously engaging all stakeholders and asking for feedback in how to improve the initiative. As a quote from Jim Knight states, those involved in the change must grow through a learning process in order to shift paradigms and appreciate the goals of the change, to make adaptations to new practices, to be allowed to adequately prepare to attempt to implement the change and to be supported as change is implemented. Change is not always easy. Therefore, tier two teams must plan on how they will deal with those who are not ready for change or who are resistant to change. In doing so, the tier two team must find ways to increase stakeholder buy in. So, several ways to do that is one, teachers must believe the change will make a difference. They must understand how that initiative or how PBIS is going to help improve their job, improve their experience within your building. The PBIS team must provide levels of support for that change. This can come through coaching teachers to implement those PBIS practices, providing technical assistance, providing the appropriate professional development for the change that we are implementing. Teachers and staff must see what is expected and believe it will work. So, as we talked about earlier, it is important that when we are prioritizing those needs and identifying the needs of the organization, that we get feedback from the stakeholders so that we agree on what the problem is. And we must also get agreement and consistency on the steps or the strategies we're going to take to solve those problems. Stakeholders must be involved in the decision making process. We must always, as I said, get feedback and input from all stakeholders whenever possible and as much as possible. Lastly, one of the most important things is the expertise of all staff must always be respected. Every educator brings a wealth of knowledge to the table and to their practice. Tier two teams must make sure that their plans respect this expertise and honor this expertise. So, in order to get teacher buy in, staff and leadership, PBIS leadership teams are going to have to do several things. One, they must verify and ensure that teachers understand the changes are research based, supported by other practitioners, and can provide significant positive impact on their practice. The proposed changes must match the identified needs of those teachers and staff. And the leaders must provide support to help them learn and implement those skills that are going to be needed in order to protect the plan as well as implement the changes that are going to occur. It is always important that the tier two team consider how to provide necessary support to stakeholders. They must do that through providing high quality upfront training to teach the staff about the PBIS framework, about any interventions that will be used, whether they are universal classroom practices or small group targeted interventions. They must provide ongoing skill building training sessions via coaching and through opportunities for feedback. Lastly, teachers and staff must see what is expected and believe it will work. The PBIS team must provide experiences and examples that demonstrate how and why it works for populations that are relevant for those that are being served within that organization. The Tier 2 team must schedule visits to other model schools if appropriate so that teams can see this in action. They should show successful videos of implementations to help teachers and staff see it actually being implemented and to see theory in action. They must always facilitate question and answer sessions and study groups to help answer those questions that those that have to implement this plan may have. The team wants to allow time to experiment and adjust before full implementation. So that they may want to select a few teachers or teams to pilot this implementation plan with to work out any kinks. And they must allow time, the staff, the time and space to make up their own minds about the implementation. One important feature of any initiative is shared decision making. We must be, as a PBIS team and as a Tier 2 team, provide opportunities for decision making and involvement in that decision making. Tier 2 teams must respect teachers' professional autonomy and work to incorporate it where appropriate. They must also involve staff in the generation of ideas before making decisions. Again, when staff feels that their voice is heard, they're more likely to work to implement any of those initiatives. And they must clarify decision making and let staff and stakeholders know who's making decisions and how those decisions will be made. So, as I said earlier, it's important to respect the expertise of the staff. Recognize expertise within the building and make sure those who wish to contribute are asked to do so. Team leaders should listen respectfully to staff questions and ideas about the implementation. They should continuously recognize staff contributions, and they should provide opportunities for reflection and shared vision of the implementation and the initiative. Another thing is that there should always be the leadership team is going to also need to understand and approve upon potentially. We have to ensure that administrative leadership publicly supports implementation and that they are doing the ongoing work to ensure success. And then they're going to clarify that the school-wide PBIS is a value change and will be a long-term commitment by all. And that it's worth the investment to learn, invest, and utilize what is being implemented. In this case, the school-wide PBIS curriculum, as well as those Tier 2 small group interventions. Thank you for tuning into this video. Please don't forget to hit like or subscribe to the channel.